morning. Today is Tuesday, December 6th. Thank you for your patience. We did do a slight agenda change, which has been passed out. Items 10, 13, 14, and 18 on the original agenda are now in the consent agenda. So if anyone is working off the original agenda, note there are new agendas that have been passed out before the meeting is called to order, and items 10, 13, 14, and 18 are now on consent agenda. With that, I will call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome fellow commissioners, guests, staff, those watching it online. Thank you so much for taking an interest in your local county government. I will open up to public comment. Is there any public that would like to address the Finance and Physical Resources Committee this morning? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment. With that, I will take a motion to pass the consent agenda.
Motion.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Sparks, supported by Commissioner Green. Questions, comments, discussion, anything that has to be pulled from consent? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of passing the consent agenda, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. That motion passes. That will bring us to item number 3 from the Administrator's Office, Property Development Rights. Al?
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept and appropriate $107,480 from the United States Department of Agriculture, Natural Resources Conservation Services, NRCS, Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, Agricultural Land Easement Grant designated for the purchase of development rights, and number 2, donated funds from the landowner in the amount of $39,520 to the 2022 Agricultural Preservation Budget in the Special Project Fund, and to authorize the board chair or designee to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. The county has been notified by NRCS that it will receive an ACEP ALE grant for the purchase of development rights in the amount of $107,480, and the landowner committed to a donation of $39,520 in their property development rights PDR application. This funding is only to be used for the purchase of development rights from one parcel in Sparta Township totaling 76 acres, parcel 410516300004. The ACEP ALE grant will cover an estimated 35%, and the landowner donation will cover an estimated 13% of the purchase price. The remaining funding of $157,000 is anticipated from the state of Michigan and the Grand Rapids Community Foundation Agricultural Preservation Fund. The Agricultural Preservation Board has funds in the Grand Rapids Community Foundation to cover closing costs. The term of the grant is September 1, 2022 through March 31, 2025. Corporate Counsel has reviewed and approved all documents to form.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Bukowski, support by Commissioner Wooden. Questions, comments, and discussion on this one? Commissioner Sparks?
Yes. Would this be Matthew Channing?
Yes.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Thank you, Matthew. I'd like to make a comment, more or less. I know that you've been working really hard on these. There wasn't, before, weren't we trying to do something else though with the property?
That was the Momber application. Following this one had a hiccup in its process that was smoothed out through receiving additional funds.
Okay. So thank you for your hard work. I think people don't understand how long it takes in the process and staying on top of all this, but we're really, really excited to have you over this department. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Yeah, initially, we did not receive this grant, and then we received a notification in August that the past 3 of our applications were getting funded, so we're lucky that we kept going through.
Commissioner Sparks, can you put on your mic when you speak?
Oh, yes, Chair, I apologize.
That's okay. So just give a quick summary of your questions, because no one can hear you at home if you don't have your mic on.
Oh, I apologize. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew the breadth of this activity that you've been doing and what a great job that you've been leading the charge in the process of this. So thank you, Matthew.
Thanks. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. That motion passes. That brings us to item number 4 from the Administrator's Office, Property Development Rights. Al?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept and appropriate $171,600 from the United States Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources Conservation Series, or NRCS, Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, Agricultural Land Easement, ACEP-ALE grant designated for the purchase of development rights and donated funds from the landowner in the amount of $48,400 to the 2022 Agricultural Preservation Budget in the Special Project Fund, and to authorize the board chair or designee to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. The county has been notified by NRCS that it will receive an ACEP-ALE grant for the purchase of development rights in the amount of $171,600, and the landowner committed to a donation of $48,400 in their property development rights, or PDR, application. This funding is only to be used for the PDR rights from 2 parcels in Sparta Township totaling 110 acres, parcel number 41-05-20-400-015 and 41-05-21-100-020. The ACP-ALE grant will cover an estimated 39%, and the landowner donation will cover an estimated 11% of the purchase price. Resolution 09222299 accepted and appropriated MDARD grant of $220,000, an estimated 50% of the purchase price, which covers the balance of the estimated cost. Resolution 07212291 accepted and appropriated $1,600,000. Okay, that number. Is it $1,600,000? Or is it $100,600? Okay, just an extra zero, tripped me up a little there. Of federal RCPP funds from Ottawa County. However, those funds will no longer be utilized and the agreement will be terminated. The corresponding appropriations will be eliminated. The Agricultural Preservation Board has funds in the Grand Rapids Community Foundation to cover closing costs. The term of the grant is September 1, 2022 through March 31, 2025.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Support.
Moved by Commissioner Bukowski, support by Commissioner Sparks. Questions and comments and discussion on this one? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. That motion passes. That brings us to item number 5 from Human Resources, Labor Agreement. Al?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve a 5-year labor agreement for the period of January 1, 2023 through December 31, 2027 between the County of Kent, the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney, and the 34-member Kent County Assistant Prosecuting Attorney, or APA, Association, and to authorize the board chair or designee to sign the agreement. The negotiating committee recommends approval of a 5-year labor agreement with the APA Association. Wages will increase in each year as follows: 4% in 2023, with an additional 4% market adjustment that applies to the APA 1 wage scale, 3% in 2024, with an adjustment tied to the MPP or management pay plan across the board increase, if greater, 2% in 2025, with an adjustment tied to the MPP across the board increase, if greater, 2026 and 2027, contract reopener limited only to annual percentage wage rate adjustment, with any adjustment tied to the MPP across the board increase if agreement is not reached. Add Juneteenth as a recognized holiday. For employees hired on or after July 1, 2016, increase the annual paid time off credit from 40 to 80 hours, and vacation will be reduced from 96 to 80 hours during the first 3 years of employment. Eligibility for vacation buyback will change from 14 to 10 years of service. In 2024, a high deductible health plan with a health savings account will be offered. Employees will pay 15% of the premium for this plan option. The copay for specialty medications under all plan options will be $100. Sickness and accident insurance and long-term disability coverage will become effective the first of the month following date of hire. The increase to salary, excluding 2026 and 27, and benefit costs over the term of the agreement is $1,054,678.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Bokowski, supported by Commissioner Sparks, and Commissioner Wooden has a question.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarity, the fifth bullet regarding the high deductible plan being offered, that's not the, just for clarity, that is not the only plan we are offering them,
No,
correct?
we're maintaining the existing plans and adding this as an additional option.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hey, Amy, just a comment. This is a 5-year plan, which I think is great, 5-year contract. Is that a little out of the ordinary, or is that just 5 years? I'm not used to seeing 5-year labor agreements, so.
Well, I think probably 3-year agreements are more common than 5-year agreements. But I think we kind of get a little bit of the best of both worlds with the 5-year agreements, with the predictability that comes with that, but also flexibility in wages, which is by far the most costly component of the labor agreement. So this is our second round of doing it this way, and it seems to be working well so far.
I think it's great. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Bokowski.
Yeah, thank you for bringing these all forward, and I guess the question deals with this, or all the labor agreements before us. Yeah, the 4% raise, and I know it's negotiated, and then 3 and 2s. Does that maintain her competitiveness in the market? You know, I've heard people grumble of 5% raises out there, and so I know, unfortunately, well, good and bad of it, reality is talent scarce, and so how are we in our recruitment of folks, and will this help or hurt?
Yeah, it honestly, recruitment is a challenge for us. I think it's a challenge for virtually every employer right now. So what we came up with represents our best effort to balance kind of the sustainability of our cost structure, considering our anticipated revenues into the future, with making sure that we can offer something that's compelling enough to recruit and retain talent. We do continue to keep an eye on it. We're just in the tail end of finishing up a wage study for a lot of our represented employees. And we also conducted wage studies for the employees that are covered under the 3 contracts that you're going to be approving today. And you'll see some kind of special adjustments if we found that we're a little bit off of market. For instance, with the APA 1 position in this particular contract. So we really are keeping a keen eye on that and doing our best to make sure that we keep up with the market as it moves around us.
All right, thank you. And then for you, Al, the question, and it was kind of answered by Amy, it's a 5-year contract, and your crystal ball tells you that this will be sustainable over 5 years?
That's what we believe, yeah. I mean, obviously, we're in somewhat turbulent times, and that's another reason to have the wage reopeners in 4 and 5. Yet I think the safety in the contract is that we do limit it, anything beyond the contract amounts to what the MPP gets. And so I'm not sure if the world knows yet whether we'll have continued inflation or recession, but it looks like there's a huge effort to make it more recessionary and not inflationary. So we don't know, but we think this contract is something we'll be able to manage and handle over 5 years, yes.
All right, thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. That motion passes. That brings us to item number 6, also from Human Resources. Al?
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve a 5-year labor agreement for the period of January 1, 2023 through December 31, 2027 between the County of Kent Circuit Court and the 8-member Circuit Court Referee Association, and authorize the board chair or designee to sign the agreement. The negotiating committee recommends approval of a 5-year labor agreement with the Circuit Court Referee Association. Wages will increase each year as follows: 4% in 2023, 3% in 2024, with an adjustment tied to the MPP across-the-board increase if greater, 2% in 2025 with an adjustment tied to the MPP across-the-board increase if greater, 2026 and 2027, contract reopener limited only to annual percentage wage rate adjustment, with any adjustment tied to the MPP across-the-board increase if agreement is not reached. Add Juneteenth as a recognized holiday for employees hired on or after January 1, 2019. Increase the paid time off credit from 40 to 80 hours, and vacation will be reduced from 96 to 80 hours during the first 3 years of employment. Eligibility for vacation buyback will change from 14 to 10 years of service. In 2024, a high-deductible health plan with a health savings account will be offered. Employees will pay 15% of the premium for this plan option. The copay for specialty medications under all plan options will be $100. Sickness and accident insurance and long-term disability coverage will become effective the first of the month following date of hire. The increase to salary, excluding 2026 and 2027, and benefit cost over the term of the agreement is $231,899.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Bukowski, supported by Commissioner Sparks. Questions, comments, and discussion on this line item? Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief clarifying question. So you mentioned in looking at the broader market, is that why in our previous action item, you alluded to this, the additional 4% market adjustment for APA wage scale, that's because we did a market comparison for assistant prosecutors. Was a similar market comparison done for the referees then?
Yes, yeah, and we found like that we were paying pretty competitive with market.
Fantastic. And then I'm seeing just a slight difference here also in the employees hired after 2019 and 2016. What was the rationale behind that difference?
That had to do with the cadence that hit with certain contracts, just depending on when the dual-tier time-off schedule was implemented. It was just a different timing when those contracts were negotiated that resulted in that difference.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. That motion passes. That brings us to item number 7, also from Human Resources. Al?
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve amendments to MPP pay and benefits as detailed below, effective December 26, 2022. Approximately 295 county clerical, professional, and management positions are covered under the Management Pay Plan, the MPP, pay structure. As authorized by the Board of Commissioners, the MPP administrative process provides for periodic review and adjustment of the pay structure for MPP positions. Human Resources recommends that the MPP pay structure increase by 4% in 2023 to maintain alignment with the market and to maintain internal equity with the county's union-represented groups, which have negotiated 4% increases for 2023. MPP employees who meet performance expectations will receive a 4% wage increase plus any applicable step increase. The wage increases are effective with the applicable pay period that contains January 1, 2023. Add Juneteenth as a recognized holiday for employees hired on or after July 1, 2016. Increase the annual paid time off credit from 40 to 80 hours, and vacation will be reduced from 96 to 80 hours during the first 3 years of employment. Accrual of vacation for part-time employees will be based on a 29-hour work week. Short-term and long-term disability coverage will become effective the first part of the month following date of hire. Hours in the SNA Supplement Bank, Sickness and Accident Supplement Bank, will be transferred to the newly created Reserve Sick Leave Bank. The total increase to salary and benefit cost is $1,329,628.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Support.
Moved by Commissioner Morgan, supported by Commissioner Wooden. We'll take questions and comments and discussion on this item. Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at this, I was wondering, the other contracts that we're approving have the high deductible plan. I noticed that was not here. Is that already because we have a high deductible plan within the MPP employees?
Good question. It has to do with the duration of what you're being asked to approve. So the contracts are going out to 5 years, including 2024, when the high deductible plan is anticipated to be implemented. So we'll be back next year to ask for approval for the high deductible plan for the MPP.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Bukowski?
I don't know if it's just me, but there seems to be a catch-22 wired into this, that we're recommending a 4% pay increase for the MPP folks because the union folks got 4%. But in 4 years, the union folks will get an increase based on MPP. So who goes first, chicken or egg? Or in 4
Yeah.
years, I'll let y'all worry about it because I won't be here.
Yeah,
I mean,
yep.
we'll have different
yeah.
unions negotiating in 4 years, and so that will set MPP and everybody else, or?
Well, yeah, I think that the unions, next year, will negotiate with the bulk of our unions, the 6 unions that involve, most of our employees. So I think that will set the stage for probably the next couple of years after that, at least, for what we would anticipate everybody would get. We have a pretty strong history of giving a consistent wage increase to every group. It helps to maintain internal equity within different groups, so my hope is that we would continue with that practice.
And
Yeah.
I think the other answer too is that we do have a strategy up front for pay increases overall. And so that kind of drives negotiations and what we do with MPP.
All right, thanks.
Yes, Commissioner Morgan?
Yeah, really, rather quickly. So the MPP plan, for a couple of years, there was a compression issues. We're not seeing that so much anymore, or?
No, I think it helped a great deal that we have a wage structure and the administration of that wage structure is similar with MPP as it is to our unions, where there's a step-type structure that's based on people progressing through over time, based, assuming their performance is acceptable. That same kind of structure exists in both entities. I think it was problematic that MPP did not have that automatic step proponent, and now that they do, everything seems to be working smoothly and in a coordinated manner.
So there's not too much difference between the union and the MPP component as far as? Okay,
Right,
I guess I'm all right with that. Second comment, this kind of sets the table, these labor agreements, as you go into next year, correct?
Yeah, to some extent, of course, it is a negotiation, so I'm sure additional things will come up and we'll have to, address those and negotiate with the unions as, just based on what their demands are.
Okay, and the rating agencies love to see us have our union contracts out of the way, just a side comment, so, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. That motion passes. That brings us to item number 8, also from Human Resources. Al?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve amended wage increases for various collective bargaining agreements and to add Juneteenth as a holiday in 2023. The county and the unions listed below have tentatively agreed to an amended wage increase of 4% in 2023, which will replace the originally agreed upon 2.5% wage increase. UAW Local 2600 represents approximately 418 employees at several county departments. TPOAM represents approximately 374 employees at the 17th Judicial Circuit Court, Probate Court, 63rd District Court, and County Clerk's Office Courts Division. KCDA represents approximately 244 corrections officers, corrections sergeants, crime scene specialists, and the crime scene unit team lead. Teamsters Local 214 represents approximately 62 public health nurses. POLC represents approximately 27 captains and lieutenants. FOPLC represents approximately 257 patrol officers, police sergeants, emergency communications officers, and emergency communications supervisors. Juneteenth is also tentatively agreed to be added as a recognized holiday in the agreements listed above. The total increase to salary and benefit cost is $4,092,902.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wooden and support by Commissioner Sparks. We'll take questions, comments, and discussion on this item. Yes, Commissioner Morgan.
Just a question, we're adding a new holiday. What's the cost of that to the county?
Well, the cost is really a productivity cost largely. In the sheriff's office and in juvenile detention, it would drive overtime. So there is a true financial cost to giving people a little bit more time off, but otherwise it's making up for the lost time. Our best estimate is about $50,000 if you just look at like the hard financial costs and you do not incorporate the productivity cost into that. Clear as mud?
Did you have a follow-up, Commissioner Morgan?
Yeah, productivity costs,
Yeah.
it's hard to put a price tag on it. I just would like to know, as we add holidays, how much does that cost the county? And you're saying $50,000?
That would be the overtime cost. If you were to take just a day of people working, it's about $250,000. I can tell you, when I have the day off, I'm probably gonna come back to work and my work will still be there and I'll have to make it up. But, so it's not necessarily as straightforward, but I would say a very conservative estimate would be about $250,000 and kind of just the hard cash overtime is about $50,000.
Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. I think we can, there's always conflicting beliefs about loss of productivity by an additional day off. There's some evidence that shows that having additional time off will make workers more productive when they're in the office. And as you said, just because you leave your work on one day doesn't mean it's not there the next. So I think, the overtime expense is the realistic forecast, and $50,000 to ensure that we are recognizing a national holiday that has not been recognized for almost 2 centuries, and that acknowledges a key moment in our nation's history when black folks finally, at the southernmost point of the former Confederacy, knew that they were freed. I think that is a holiday worth celebrating and well worth the $50,000 in overtime costs. But that's just my 2 cents, and just appreciate the work that's been done by Human Resources and leadership to ensure it's included. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, just a
Yes.
follow-up. It's not the holiday purpose, it's the holiday cost of any holiday, so.
I think there's a couple other considerations I'd like to just mention. One is the fact that the Supreme Court Administrator's Office said the Supreme Court mandated this day for folks in the court system. And we worked through it with the judges for 1 year. It was kind of awkward because not everybody in the courthouse was impacted by getting that holiday. And so you have partial staffs there and that type of thing. And for our own efficiency, we like to keep all of our employees with the same holiday schedule. It's fairly inefficient for us to not. And then the other factor would just be, whenever you compare comparable counties, obviously it's hard to get a true apples to apples comparison because we all do things a little bit different. But our holiday list is down a couple compared to our comps. And so, again, that's just another factor that we use in recommending this.
Yes, Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to say that I am very thankful as a person of color for this day, that it is finally being recognized. And to everyone else, have a day off. There's many things that we can do on that day. We can do a day of service as Kent County if we want to, or the hard-working individuals. We all know that more things are getting put on everyone's plate because of the lack of individuals that are able to work or the lack of the people in the workforce. So I totally think this is a great opportunity to recognize the day, but also to give our employees, time needed off so that they can refresh themselves.
Thanks. Anyone else?
And recognize Juneteenth.
All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. That motion passes. That brings us to item number 9, also from Human Resources. Al?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve a 5-year labor agreement for the period of January 1, 2023 through December 31, 2027 between the County of Kent and the 17-member Parks Department Teamsters State, County, and Municipal Workers Local 214, and to authorize the board chair or designee to sign the agreement. The negotiating committee recommends approval of a 5-year labor agreement with the Teamsters Union. Wages will change as follows: 2023, 4% increase. An additional step was also added to the top of the assistant manager wage scale to reflect an upward market adjustment, and to the bottom of the wage scales for the equipment specialists and maintenance specialist positions to reflect a downward market adjustment. 2024, 3% increase with an adjustment tied to the MPP, across the board increase if greater. 2025, 2% increase with an adjustment tied to the MPP, across the board increase if greater. 2026 and 2027, contract reopener limited only to annual percentage wage rate adjustment, with any adjustment tied to the MPP, across the board increase if agreement is not reached. Additional market adjustments of 4% for 2023, 3% for 2024, 2% 2025 will be applied for the park manager. Add Juneteenth as a recognized holiday for employees hired on or after January 1, 2019. Increase the annual paid time off credit from 40 to 80 hours, and vacation will be reduced from 96 to 80 hours during the first 3 weeks of employment, first 3 years of employment. Vacation buyback will be offered instead of PTO buyback. In 2024, a high deductible health plan with health savings account will be offered. Employees will pay 15% of the premium for this plan option. The copay for specialty medications under all plan options will be $100. Sickness and accident insurance and long-term disability coverage will become effective the first of the month following date of hire. The increase to salary, excluding 2026 and 2027, and benefit costs over the term of the agreement is $495,093.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve? And support?
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Sparks, supported by Commissioner Bukowski. We'll take questions, comments, and discussion. Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Real brief. I'm seeing the first bullet regarding the market adjustments, and it mentions the equipment specialist and maintenance specialist positions reflect a downward market adjustment. I find that hard to believe, just given in my own life, in my own day job, where we see there are at least similarly titled roles in my day job that are struggling to retain employees because of upward market adjustments. So can you tell us a little bit about how that was determined that there's been a downward market adjustment for these positions and wage rates?
Sure. The wage scale for some of the jobs in the Parks Department, including the 2 maintenance jobs and also the assistant park manager, had fewer steps than the wage scales for, let's say, the UIW or TPOAM. So the starting wage was higher for these jobs than it would be for, let's say, an automotive mechanic in the UIW, for instance. So what we did was we added a step at the bottom of the wage scale that made the starting wage for these jobs similar and comparable to the starting wage for some of our other technical jobs. So that's really what happened. The market wage did not go down for these jobs, but we were paying a very high starting wage, and we just made that adjustment to make it comparable to what we would pay in other unions, and also more comparable to what the market would start people at.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. That motion passes. This is where we start with some of the movements we made before the meeting started. So the previous item number 10 was already passed in consent. So the new number 10 is from the Health Department. And Al, I ask you to cover the Health Department Ready by 5 Early Childhood Millage Services Fetal Infant Mortality Review Grant, please.
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to appropriate $99,626 to the 2022-23 Health Fund budget and to authorize the board chair or his designee to approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. The Health Department has received $132,835 in funding from the Ready by 5 Early Childhood Millage Services for the Fetal Infant Mortality Review, FIMR program in Kent County. The grant period is January 1, 2023 through December 31, 2023. However, only the first 9 months of funding, $99,626, has been awarded. The remaining $33,209 will be included in the 2023-24 Health Fund budget. Kent County's FIMR program will closely follow the model as established by the state of Michigan. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services describes FIMR as evidence-based process of identification and analysis of factors that contribute to fetal and infant death. FIMR complements other studies of infant death, but uses an approach that is community-based, action-oriented, and designed to bring together local health providers, consumers, advocates, and leaders. The FIMR coordinator will utilize the network of connections formed by Ready by 5 to provide greater awareness of data surrounding child deaths in Kent County, to contribute to better preventative and intervention activities for children aged 0 to 5. Efforts will be targeted to identify significant social, economic, cultural, safety, health, and systems factors that contribute to mortality and to design and implement community-based action plans founded on the information obtained from the reviews. Since the beginning of the program in 2021, 65 infant death cases have been reviewed, with over 25 community members from various agencies contributing to these reviews. The funding will be used to support the costs of the FIMR coordinator, supplies, travel, and overhead costs. The award period is January 1, 2023 to September 30, 2023.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion?
Moved by Commissioner Sparks, supported by Commissioner Wooden. We'll take questions, comments, and discussion. Yes, Commissioner Bukowski.
Thank you, Chair. Is this a new position, or is a public health nurse just going to be funded by this grant instead of something else? Good to see you, Dr. London.
This was a new position created last year. Previously, Spectrum Health was running the FEMA review process, and that was turned over to us last year, and we had a position for that.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. That motion passes. Now, our next one is item 11 from the Health Department, Ready by 5 Early Childhood Millage Services Lead Expansion Program. Al?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to appropriate $437,040 to the 2022-23 Health Fund budget and to authorize the board chair or designee to approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. The Health Department has received $582,720 in funding under the Healthy Development, Healthy and Safe Home Environment section of the Ready by 5 Early Childhood Millage Services for the lead expansion program in Kent County. The grant period is January 1, 2023 through December 31, 2023. However, only the first 9 months of funding, $437,040, has been awarded. The remaining $145,680 will be included in the 2023-24 Health Fund budget. Lead services will be conducted in homes for children 0 to 5 years of age, have been found to have elevated blood lead levels. These services include home health screenings and lead inspections and risk assessments, LIRAs. Referrals of children with elevated blood lead levels are received from internal sources as well as community partners. The Health Department expects to provide 108 home health screenings and 36 LIRAs to qualifying homes within this grant period. In 2021, the Health Department provided 73 home health screenings and 34 LIRAs. The Health Department will also provide educational outreach and coordination of services to eligible participants through this grant program. The grant funds will support the existing staff of 3 full-time sanitarians, 1 full-time public health educator, 0.85 full-time equated of a clerk 2, and 0.3 FTE of a supervising sanitarian, as well as travel supplies, software, promotional items, and indirect costs. The award period is January 1, 2023 to September 30, 2023.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Or support.
All right, we'll do moved by Commissioner Sparks, support by Commissioner Bukowski. Okay, then we're gonna move by Commissioner Bukowski, support by Commissioner Sparks. We'll take questions, comments, and discussion. Yes, Commissioner Sparks.
I have a question, Chair. Thank you. Am I addressing this to Dr. London? So the 108 people are the people that are going to be in this pool and able to utilize the service. Have they been identified, or is that based on past numbers?
So I'm going to have Sarah Simmons, our Environmental Health Director, to address that. She oversees the program directly.
Lucky, thank you.
Sure, I gotta readjust. So that is what we're projecting, and I think actually we'll exceed that. Right now, with the lowering of the blood reference level, we've really seen an acceleration in the work, and I think that that's a good and bad thing, just because such issue still exists. But I'm very confident that we'll be able to achieve that or exceed it. And yeah, we'll leave it there.
Sure.
What if we have more, because this being the highest, number of children with lead in the 49507, what if we have more? Is there a way that we can support the work? Should there be more?
Yes. Actually, that's where we were working with community partners. And we have some really amazing community partners like Healthy Homes Coalition, who are just right there side by side with us, working also with the Hispanic Center and some other community partners. And I think that that's really what we're going to see, is that we're actually already seeing it now, is that the workload is expanding at a really rapid pace. And so I think that really is the worry. But I also think that there's some things coming from Michigan Department of Health and Human Services that might help us address it.
Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Since it is Commissioner Volkowski's last finance meeting, I feel the need to ask a question. I think he would, but I'm going to avoid the normal metaphors he uses involving infants and water, because I never quite understand them. The referrals. Having that said, the referrals come from children who have elevated blood lead levels. Is there a reason why we can't have referrals based on, be more preemptive, based on an expectant parent's living situation, based on the age of that home, to get a lead home assessment prior to birth, if only to ensure that the home this child is going to is lead safe prior to their arrival, rather than getting a child testing at an elevated blood lead level and then fixing it later? Is there a way that referrals can be done prior to the blood test?
You're really speaking to the heart of what Commissioner Sparks was alluding to, is that we have the demand of our kids who are being poisoned by lead that is driving the work. So we are that is part of the Ready by 5 program, is the preventative portion of it. But right now, we're really in a very highly reactive position as opposed to preventative. And that's really something that, again, we're working with community partners to get the and both. Because like you said, preventative is really the goal. That's the aspiration. But unfortunately, we have the reactive portion of the program that's really driving things right now.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner
I want
Bukowski?
to add to that we also have our early childhood programs, our maternal and infant health programs, where we're in many of the highest risk homes in the community. And there is an added element of health education to that. Now, we don't have the full lead assessment that's happening in that spot. What we do know is that through health education and through different behaviors and practices in the home, a great deal of that lead risk can be mitigated. So while, as Sarah indicated, there's a lot of work to do, and that would be the ideal state. Right now, we are working on those highest risk homes and trying to educate those that are pregnant and expecting.
Commissioner Bukowski.
Yeah, the first question, can you in 59 seconds give us like how this all fits together? Because based on this motion, it's like you send in a sanitarian and they say, yep, you got lead. And here, don't eat paint chips. Have a good day. You know, it's like, how does this all really fit together? We just approved $3.8 million in ARPA funding to do something about lead, and Healthy Homes has had millions of dollars of federal money on lead, and lead and lead and lead, and then you tell us there's more people coming with lead poisoning. So 58 seconds, go. How does it all work?
Fair question. So the community wellness is the team that actually receives the information about the child who's been poisoned by lead. That is a trigger for our team in environmental health to engage with that parent and inspect that home. So that's one side of the program. And then there's the other side is really what Dr. London alluded to is the education and outreach portion, which is trying to get people who upstream from the issue. Now, how it all works together is that we partner with the Lead Action Team and work with our community partners to strategize how do we address these really big, nasty issues, and how do we get the best outcome for that specific home. So we try to look at the home in a holistic way. This is just a piece of that puzzle. So it's not the end-all, be-all of everything we do in lead, but it's a significant portion of it. And this really addresses the heart of what we're after are the moms that are pregnant and the children. So.
And maybe this is a rhetorical question for you because it could be a little political, but the idea that the same time we approved $3.8 million for lead and ARPA funding, we approved $3 million for the extension of a water main dealing with PFAS. And PFAS has a high likelihood of doing bad things to a human body. But lead is guaranteed to do terrible things to a developing body, and we've known it for a long, long, long time. We've taken lead out of gas, 50 years ago? We've taken it out of paint, but it's still there, and we refuse to test every home for lead. You know, sitting with my youngest child, signing a lease, and the landlord said, here, you got to sign this disclosure which says there's probably lead in this house because it was built before 1970, but we haven't tested it, so sign here and don't eat the paint chips. And the landlord laughed. The landlord knows there's lead in the house. We know there's lead in the house, but why don't we test it the way we did north of town? We tested every house for PFAS that would let us in, and we gave them water filters, and we took care of PFAS, but we know the houses. It's not about kids and their parents. It's about people who own homes and choose to be ignorant, to have such negative impact on an individual life as well as societal. I mean, when are we just going to say every house has to be tested for lead and let's bite the bullet and finish it? And you can say pass if you'd like. That's my time.
No, I just want to clarify one element of that is that the PFAS testing and largely with all the water testing that was done up in North County, that was done by the Department of Environmental, or they were the Department of Environmental Quality, but they're Environmental Great Lakes and Energy now. That was state-funded money. I just want to clarify that. So it wasn't for lack of effort on our part. But to your point it is two-pronged. It's like, again, it's the prevention and then it's the reactive part. And the part that I have left off that's a really significant portion is the abatement. And so one of the things that we're really trying to tackle right now is how do you get those corrective actions? How do you enforce that with those landlords to say, no, this isn't acceptable, this is what you need to do, and have the teeth to do it. So I think that is actually the next natural step for this is, yes, I agree with you, education, outreach, information is great to empower people to make choices, but I think that there are two things that really are counteracting that, and that's the lack of availability of housing for people to actually leave the situation that they're in. And then the other part is, and you've heard this again and again, are contractors, are people who are able to get out to do the work, to actually correct the problem, and also the people to actually go out and do the lead inspection risk assessments. That number is drastically low in our county. We have 12 people in our county that can do the work. 6 of them are employed by the health department. So when you talk about it, it does get a little bit overwhelming. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think that would be the best strategy. But it's just how do you get there? I think is the next question. I think that's an ongoing conversation that we're having with both local and state partners.
I should mention too, so I've been an appointee of the last two governors on the Commission for Lead Exposure Elimination in Children since its inception. And my teams typically have led the strategic planning for the group over the years. And their top objective right now is universal testing of children at different age brackets throughout the state. So that is what they plan to try to move over the next year. So it going at it either through the House or through the kids, but yeah, what's most efficient, yeah.
Yeah, and part of it then is the frustration, since we're speaking for each other today, I'll speak for Commissioner Morgan, when you say that the stuff for PFAS, at least in some parts of it, that was state money, but it doesn't matter, it's our money that we filter through Lansing and they send a little bit back. Federal money's our money, a little bit comes back. It's like, let's get our ducks in a row. We got 50 pages on a grant for $20,000 to the sheriff. It's like, really? It costs us $30,000 to administer a $20,000 grant. So all of that being said, is like to really focus on it, because, the Board of Public Works, we paid money directly, not state money, not federal money, good old-fashioned Kent County money to help people not be poisoned by PFAS. So again, it doesn't matter where the money comes from, it's our money. So maybe, and I know it's not you, and I know you would, with a magic wand, eliminate a few things upstream related to the bureaucracy that you have to suffer through day in and day out. No, you can pass on that one too. So again, maybe I'm gonna sound like a Republican as I leave, but we gotta fix these systems, because kids' lives are being ruined forever because the system is so not effective. So, and that's me, not Commissioner Morgan, saying that last part, because he'd never say that about bureaucracy.
Okay, Commissioner Green is up next.
Thank you, Chair. This is a little bit tertiary, but I think we're on the way back to the point from where we arrived, but it's not all the way back, so I'll concede that. One thing I did want to note, because I tend to agree with Commissioner Volkowski, and when it comes to PFAS and water quality, we are doing the permitting of wells and that sort of thing with county dollars outside of the response to, the crisis that we had in North Kent and continue to have. But I did want to ask a question sort of related to, I know this is, like I said, a little bit tertiary, but every time I'll probably continue to ask this every time we talk about lead, and I have our friends from the health department here. Obviously, we've wanted to go where the greatest need is, and the greatest need and ability to do the most with the most effective use of resources has been in the 507. So I understand that, but we've continued to talk a little bit about how we address the problem with, every commissioner's district, every quarter of the county has homes built, prior to 78. And so, how do we get to a point where we can start to, try to be a little bit more proactive in those areas? I worry particularly about our smaller cities, that are, places like Lowell, Cedar Springs that are older, and they might not have the same, we see some of the same problems in the rural areas as we do in the urban areas. So just a general kind of question about that.
Yeah, it's a great point, and it goes back to Al's point about universal testing of children, and we really need to make sure that we're seeing that. It's one of the few examples of a problem where children in the urban environment receive better care than those in the outlying areas where lead questions are rarely asked, and testing is rare as well. So we are working with those provider offices throughout the community to make sure that they are expanding their batteries of questions with parents in offering that lead testing. Having the test kit or equipment available is also an issue, so working with them to make sure that they have relationships to laboratories that they can do the capillary and the venous testing as well is important. But yeah, it's really an issue where an assumption is made in the urban environment that you do live in a house that's older than 1978. Many times in the more rural and suburban environments, the assumption is the opposite. And so combating that's a key point.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's helpful. And I think, unfortunately, but fortunate for the communication, you know, the good work that you guys have done in, you know, places like the 507 where, you know, it's a matter of public discussion that this is a lead problem in the community. But that's not as, you know, people don't really know that when you get out into the outer rings of the county. So anyway, I appreciate it. Not, like I said, I know it's secondary to what we're talking about, but I'm going to keep bringing it up when we have the opportunity, so.
Commissioner Morgan.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I don't have enough time to pontificate about my feelings on bureaucracy.
You have nothing but time, Commissioner Morgan.
Following up on Commissioner Bolkowski, there's nothing to prevent a municipality from requiring a test for lead on a new house or a rental, right? I mean, is there all kinds of roadblocks for the city of Grand Rapids to require that?
Not that I would defer to corporate counsel on.
If there is, it's really puzzling to me, but
The Grand Rapids City Ordinance does have exclusions for lead in their rental inspection requirements. So there are some ordinances out there that would need to be updated or changed to do some sort of mandated. Pardon me?
well, it just seems to me that sometimes the easiest pathway is not taken. So it just amazes me that everybody wants to look so globally that sometimes maybe a little more focused and you know, approach to this would probably be more appropriate. But that's just me. There's too much bureaucracy in the world to probably focus on that. So I appreciate everybody at the health department and what they've done on lead. We've been involved with that for a number of years, and it just, when I hear that, you know, there is a problem, and it's in the older, you know, areas in the city and out in the county, it just seems to me that we make some of this a little more complicated than we need to, so.
Thank you for the comments, Commissioner Morgan, and I agree with your points. I also want to restate that I think sometimes with lead, there is a feeling of despair that it's so big, that it's such an enormous problem that we can't make any difference. And actually, when we look at our data and the rates of elevated blood lead levels, they've come down a great deal over the course of the past 20 or 30 years, and a lot in the past 3 or 4 years as well. So we are making progress. It's not time to spike the football. We still have a lot of work to do on lead and making sure that we're treating it equally and equitably throughout the county. But a lot of progress has been made, and I don't want us to feel as though we haven't had any wins with lead, because we've had a lot.
Thanks. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. That motion passes. Well, continuing on with complex, in our previous agenda, we had 2 items, 13 from the Sheriff's Office and 14 from the Sheriff's Office, moved to the consent agenda and passed. So that makes our old item 15 now item 12 from the Sheriff's Office. And I will ask Al to please cover the request to provide additional school resource officer for Kent City Community Schools.
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to enter into an agreement with the Kent City Community Schools to provide school resource officer, SRO services, to add 1 new county patrol officer, CPO position, to appropriate $104,206, which is 75% of the annual costs of $138,941 for the 9-month budget, to the Sheriff's 2023 Special Project Fund budget, and to authorize the board chair or designee to sign the agreements. The Sheriff's Office would like to contract with Kent City Community Schools to add a CPO position to provide the school with a second SRO. The SRO program is a collaborative effort between the schools, community, students, and law enforcement. This program creates a safe school environment by having a certified police officer assigned to a specific school district. The goal of the SRO program is to provide proactive law enforcement by working with educators, students, and parents in an effort to reduce crime, drug abuse, violence in and around the school buildings and the school district. The cost for the officer is $138,941 annually. and that consists of $123,237 in wages and benefits and $15,704 in vehicle, equipment, and operating costs. The $15,704 includes the annualized vehicle cost and assumes the purchase of a new vehicle and equipment once every 5 years. Pursuant to the agreement, the school district will pay 100% of the wage and benefit costs. The school district will also pay $350 per month or $4,200 per year toward the cost of the vehicle used by the officer. All other expenses, remaining vehicle, equipment, and operating costs, will be provided via the cost allocation plan and absorbed by the county's general fund. The applicable contract has been reviewed and approved as to form by Assistant Corporate Counsel. If funding is eliminated or decreased, the position and/or vehicle addition will be eliminated unless continuation funding is approved pursuant to fiscal policy on grants, contracts, and donations.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Commissioner Bukowski, support by Commissioner Green. We'll take questions, comments, and discussion on this topic. Yes, Commissioner Bukowski.
Well, since I was, I'll just say what razzed yesterday by the sheriff, my ability to ask questions, I'm compelled to ask her a question today. But the question hopefully is a simple one. Yesterday you stated that today you're at full force, or at least yesterday you were at full force.
Literally,
Yeah.
it went down yesterday
It
by
did?
one, but
So that being said, if we approve these 2 positions next week, will you be down by 3? Are these new positions or you're transferring folks into them?
that's a complicated answer, as I'm sure you would imagine. Always are. So the sheriff's department is authorized to go above strength for a very small percentage, so that we're able to hire as groups graduate from academies or slightly over our allowed strength becomes available. A reminder, it's about 6 months to get a police officer qualified to work the first day all by themselves, and we are never able to have ready police officers for the positions that we need filled on our rosters, even though my numbers are at strength. So again, a convoluted answer for your somewhat straightforward question. School resource officer is not a role that somebody who is just starting in law enforcement is ready to fill. And so we generally will take somebody with more experience. It's a competitive process. We usually have people put in an interest letter. There's an interview that happens at the school with both school representatives and sheriff's office representatives with eligible candidates. They pick from that pool. That person is then assigned to that, take that, we backfill whatever position they leave. Sometimes it's detective, it could be road patrol, with then a new officer. The whole cycle starts over again. So with these additions, starting in January, I will be under strength. We have a hire group that is pending right now. We attempted to get 12, we got 8. And so that 8 puts us behind in January. And we are trying very desperately to get not only the other 4 that we couldn't get, but additionals beyond that, because I have a number of expected retirements early next year and then throughout next year. It is a full speed run every single day to try to get these positions filled. I really can't emphasize that enough. This is a very difficult balance for the sheriff's office. Almost 50% of our positions have been hired in the last 4 years, and it takes me 6 months to get them filled. You throw a number of that, you just heard $128,000 a year for a starting deputy. 50% of that cost is every time we have a turnover. It's very heavy load. So taking on this position, these contracts are something we weigh very heavily on whether we agree to do it. That being said, response times are something we factor in. Schools have a lot of our most precious residents that they're taking care of every single day, and I believe they need the help. I believe this program makes students safer, and we need to do everything as a community that we can to make students safer. Safer is the word I'm using. There's more strategies that still need to go. Yeah.
Commissioner Green?
Thank you, Chair. 2 quick, well, I don't know if they're quick. I'll try to make them quick. two questions, Sheriff. One related to both this and the Rockford item, and then I guess my question in general is, I'm a strong advocate for the school resource officers for the reasons that you mentioned. I think it's a really unique kind of community policing that we get to do right in the schools, and for all the reasons you said. What would your kind of overall assessment be on, where we, I don't need you to name specific districts, but do you think we're getting at a point where we're, I think you'd probably like to see one as in as many buildings as we could have one realistically, or districts. But are we getting at that problem, or do we have more work to do to fill that void? And I know we've done a few of these even just since my time, since I've been here.
I definitely feel that school resource officers in a building make that building safer. There are a lot of statistics to back that up. And then beyond that, many of these incidents that start, if you have an active shooter event that starts, they generally don't stop until they are stopped by being either disarmed or confronted by another armed person that's able to stop the threat. So very much on our mind as we look at these incidents has to do with how much time does it take us to react and get somebody with boots on ground. So minutes, seconds even matter very much. That honestly ties back to the radio project that you guys were very generous to, that communication piece matters, because locating that threat in a building with real-time information is imperative. And I think we've all seen gaps in that in different responses. So I know you all want us to be as prepared as possible and to have that best information. But then the second part is that who are you telling that information to, and where are they, and how long will it take them to get there? And how do we make all that recipe best? But I do think it's easy to look at the person in uniform as only a response, and that's not their primary role. It's a role. The primary role is to participate in collaborative planning about how to best meet the need of a student who is at risk and who's been identified with risky behavior. And I think that is the work our school resource officers do in collaboration with every other discipline that finds themselves in a school. We will coordinate very closely with mental health professionals, with school professionals. We come up with strategies that maybe do go outside of the school building. And, I have school resource officers who pick students up for school and get them there because part of their at-risk behavior is isolation and moving away from the school system. So it looks different. It usually doesn't look like a response to a threat. It usually looks like proactive, collaborative police work that is healthy and important for our community. But it can look like a reaction to a very bad, dangerous situation.
I appreciate that. That's part of why I'm so supportive of it, because I recognize that it's community policing, like I said, in the school, but then we also have the ability, God forbid, but if we need to be ready to respond. The other this is a brief question, hopefully. Kent City is one of these, I guess, lucky districts that overlaps multiple counties, jurisdictions. I think they're in Muskegon and Ottawa and Kent. And I just wondered how that plays into logistics of this.
The building is physically in our jurisdiction, so the authority to act, we do have the authority to act. In the event that there's a at-risk student that lives outside of the county, we generally would collaborate, let them know we're going to work with this kid out of our jurisdiction. It's usually not an issue at all. In fact, I can't think of a single time. We have it in Caledonia, too, where it kind of goes into Berry County. But it's generally not a problem. But
Cool.
There is coordination that happens.
All right, great. Thanks, Sheriff.
Commissioner Morgan?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Sheriff. Couple of thoughts. I think that, I know it's an issue for you, with the staffing, but I am glad to see, the silver lining is, okay, we have 8 out of the 12. We have very high standards here, and we're just not hiring everybody to fill a position. I really appreciate that. And the other part of it is I support the school RPOs 100%. Thank you for that. A lot of schools in the district come to you for that kind of position. But The other thing is, I think it's really good news that you're only a couple of positions down, given, you know, the way things are going. We don't see a lot of people just leaving the sheriff's department because they don't feel they're supported, which is real important to me. And your ability to backfill these positions until you become fully staffed is, I think, very important. So I see a lot of silver linings, even though there are a lot of, you know, issues and challenges. I just appreciate the fact that we have a very, very high standard and a vetting process to become a police officer in Kent County, and thank you for that.
Yeah, we absolutely do have a very strong vetting process. We also have a very healthy recruiting process where we're reaching young people, sometimes not so young people too, but young people who are considering the industry. And we work very closely with like KCTC, which is part of Kent Intermediate School Districts. We have a very vibrant cadet program, which is some of our most diverse employees in the entire county. We are working very hard to build backgrounds to serve Kent County for a very long time. But I think you're going to see that some more innovative strategies are going to become more pronounced as we're moving forward, because we used to get hundreds. We used to have systems to sort applications as they would come to the sheriff's office. And that was only a few years ago. So we really do have to understand that keeping people is our best strategy. We do have a pension system that is very fruitful if they can work all the way through, but keeping people beyond the time they want to be a police officer is probably not prudent for anybody. That it's not good for that human being who's trying to make that personal decision. It's not good for the sheriff's office. So retaining people, keeping them healthy, keeping them loving the work, and having opportunities within the work, which also kind of goes back to the school resource officer, that's imperative. But getting people interested in the work, and that has to be a community-wide message. And I said this at a couple other events recently, but it's not just police work, it's public service. We need to start telling people why we love public service and why it's important to everybody. Because if we don't do that, we're not going to have anybody in any of these roles.
Commissioner Wooden?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair, for all the comments you've made and all the answers you provided. I know that I think we've talked about this in the past with others, but I wanted to ask about this again. So obviously, you've talked about the thorough vetting process you use to select quality talent for these positions. And I appreciate that, because while we have not seen this in this community, or there are stories and evidence in other districts and other counties across this country where school resource officers, because of one reason or another, the district is lower resourced than ours, teachers have far more students in their class, that the school resource officer essentially becomes the disciplinarian. And while we certainly think the world of our public safety officers, being a school disciplinarian is probably not what they should be doing, and sometimes leads to a less than satisfactory response and discipline. Is there anything in our agreements to ensure that that mission creep does not happen? That they certainly have a role to play in the student's life in collaborating to avoid that at-risk, that situation that they're there for. But is there something to ensure that their job is not to discipline a student that's just harder to discipline, and the administrator or educator working with them, that particular student has referred them over to the resource officer? Is there a way to ensure that they're just not evolving into a disciplinarian?
Well, our contracts are largely a financial instrument, but they are very clear with a couple things. The staff remains the sheriff's office staff. They serve at the discretion of the sheriff. And and I will just say, the most important thing you can do in police work, and I'm sure many other industries too, is to train and supervise. If you don't train people, they will not have the understanding of what they should be and shouldn't be doing. We're very particular on that orientation and then supervise to that orientation. So, getting back to my comments about what the everyday looks like, it's that participation in a system. And if there's evidence that that system is falling down and that system isn't working and there's inappropriate stress or pressure on the school resource officer to do more than what is healthy for them to do, then that's part of the sheriff's administration, circle back to the superintendent or the school board. And frankly, we have had ended school resource officer relationships historically based on a discrepancy between how we saw the mission and how they saw the mission. And my answer was, if you see the mission differently, find somebody to do that mission, because this is where we live. This is what we do. And I think it's important because it impacts the entire reputation of the department, of the community, and of the industry. So that's how we manage that. We do keep management control very pronounced in our agreements and in our practices. And I think that's imperative that we do that going forward. It is tricky, though, when they're not on site, when they're off on an island. So I have to have supervisors with boots on the ground to go, hey, how you doing today, Stephen? What's going on? What are you up to? What did you do yesterday? What did you do the day before? And we do have management oversight in that way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. That motion passes. That brings us to what was an old item 16 from the previous agenda to item 13 on this agenda from the Sheriff's Office. Request to provide additional school resource officer for Rockford Public Schools. Al?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to enter into an agreement with the Rockford Public Schools to provide school resource officer, SRO services, to add one new county patrol officer, CPO, position, to appropriate $104,206, which is 75% of annual costs of $138,941 for the 9-month budget, to the Sheriff's 2023 Special Project Fund budget, and to authorize the board chair or designee to sign the agreements. The Sheriff's Office would like to contract with Rockford Public Schools to add a CPO position to provide the school with a second SRO. The SRO program is a collaborative effort between the schools, community, students, and law enforcement. This program creates a safe school environment by having a certified police officer assigned to a specific school district. The goal of the SRO program is to provide proactive law enforcement by working with educators, students, and parents in an effort to reduce crime, drug abuse, and violence in and around the school buildings and the school district. The cost for the officer is $138,941 annually. That consists of $123,237 in wages and benefits and $15,704 in vehicle equipment and operating costs. The $15,704 includes the annualized vehicle cost and assumes the purchase of a new vehicle and equipment once every 5 years. Pursuant to the agreement, the school district will pay 100% of the wage and benefit costs. The school district will also pay $350 per month or $4,200 per year toward the cost of the vehicle used by the officer. All other expenses, remaining vehicle, equipment, and operating costs will be provided via the cost allocation plan and absorbed by the county's general fund. The applicable contract has been reviewed and approved as to form by Assistant Corporate Counsel. If funding is eliminated or decreased, the position and/or vehicle addition will be eliminated unless continuation funding is approved pursuant to fiscal policy on grants, contracts, and donations.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Commissioner Green, support by Commissioner Sparks. We'll take questions, comments, and discussion on this one. Yes, Commissioner Morgan.
Just one thought, it's the same price as Kent City, and Rockford is, I don't know, has twice or 3 times the student population, so it's just a flat formula is how you approach this?
It's cost recovery, but on a side note, Rockford School District is also contracting with Rockford PD for one of the schools in their jurisdiction, so it's just however they put it together.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anyone else? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. That motion passes. That brings us to item 14 on our new agenda, which was the previous item 17. We are in an item from the Department of Health and Human Services, the 2023 current unmet needs funding. Al?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to allocate $307,053 in funding for human services programs and services as recommended by the Department of Health and Human Services, DHHS Board. Summary of request. The Board of Commissioners annually appropriates funds to the DHHS through an open request for proposals. Funds are awarded by the DHHS Board following a review of the proposals submitted by various community or human service agencies. Programs and services approved for funding are for agencies and programs that receive assistance due to an absence of other funding sources, their ability to leverage significant other resources, or are in support of a cooperative effort of multiple funding sources. The 2023 recommendations include $307,053 to fund 18 programs and services for unmet needs programs and services that will begin in January 2023.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Bolkowski. Support by Commissioner Wooden. We'll start with Commissioner Morgan with questions.
Thank you. Just a comment. This is a program that's pretty specific to Kent County, and been supporting this for 22 years, and I hope it continues. This program was established to help some of these organizations that can't find any other funding source. So it's something the county put in place a long time ago, and it's been able to stand the test of time in even Commissioner Bolkowski's reign. So thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Bolkowski?
Thank you, Chair. I first want to recognize one of the DHHS board members, Betty Zalstra, who's put up with my tangents and other diversions for the last hour and a half, waiting patiently for this simple item. But as Commissioner Morgan said, it's not a simple item. It is something unique to us as a county, that we invest our general fund in stuff where, in a lot of ways, the things on this list, in theory, are other people's responsibilities. Back to our friends in Lansing who sit on $7 billion, and as our ARPA process showed us, there's a lot of unmet needs in our community, and one that we didn't fund because it wasn't eligible, the whole direct care worker crisis, which is just, it's unbelievable out there. If you're trying to find somebody to provide childcare, work in a group home, I could go on, but I won't. So anyways, I totally agree with Commissioner Morgan that this is good, and I hope it continues. And we'll leave it at that for today.
Okay, anyone else? I had just, go ahead, Commissioner Wooden.
Sorry, I just wanted to, while it is not a conflict of interest, I at least wanted to disclose that one of the beneficiaries of the proposed unmet needs budget, Genesis Housing has a contractual relationship with my employer, Dwelling Place, though Dwelling Place's contractual relationship does not include the funding they are receiving under the unmet needs budget. Dwelling Place is the property manager for their properties, though the funding that they are receiving is for a resident supports coordinator that is not employed by Dwelling Place. So just wanted to disclose the relationship, but I do not believe it is a conflict of interest.
It's not. Just a quick question on process. So when these entities do get their funding, we don't write them a check, right? Don't they send like an invoice to the county to then be paid? Can someone address process on how they get the funding?
Disability Advocates used to be a recipient, and once a month we would have to show what we did, and we would have to invoice monthly to draw down our unmet needs. So I don't know if it continues that way while Ms. Ghostin Jones was making her way to the front.
Good morning, Commissioners. The recipients of these dollars do invoice each month, although some prefer to invoice on a quarterly basis, but we do require that they submit some sort of invoice, so the award is paid out on a reimbursement methodology versus them asking for it all at once. And throughout the course of the year, just so you know, they do come in and provide reports in person to the DHHS board to talk about how they are using these funds and how the funds are being impactful on the work that they are doing.
So hypothetically, if an entity wanted to submit twice a year or even just once at the end of the year, is that something you could work with that entity on for the funding, or do you need something at least quarterly?
We could work with them using that methodology, as long as the entity is aware that these are reimbursements.
Yep.
And that nothing is going out in advance. And we have had that happen, where an entity has submitted at the end of the year, like, oh my gosh, because, well, the staff change sometimes and they don't realize. And there are these funds that we need to use, and they've been using them all year long, but didn't realize that they had not submitted. And the staff person here who is responsible for paying out those invoices does send out an email if she notices that they haven't been any requests for reimbursement, then she will send something out as a reminder. Hey, these dollars are still sitting here for your use.
Okay. Anything else? All right, seeing none. All those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. That motion passes. On our old agenda, we had item from Fiscal Services on the 2022 Lodging Excise Tax Budget Amendment. That passed in consent agenda. That will bring us to Jeff's brief third quarter financial status report.
Morning, Chair and Commissioners. Very brief because of the time. I think this might be the longest finance meeting I've ever attended, so anyway.
It's what happens when it's my last one.
That's right.
We gotta go out long.
Do you guys all have a copy of the report, I assume, in front of you? Okay. So this is through the third quarter of '22. You will note revenues overall are up just 0.8% over last year to $159.1 million. Expenses are up to $149.4 million, or 7.9% over a similar period last year. Some of the reasons for that, you'll notice on page 2, taxes are pretty much flat from year to year right now, but we expect them to meet budget, so no real concerns there. Intergovernmental revenues are increased from 17.6 to 19.4, or 10.5%, and that's due to the timing of collections for dispatch revenue. We anticipate them still ending in line with budget. Interest earnings are up, as Pete mentioned before. They've been moving monies from CDs to treasuries, so they're earning a higher rate of return, so they're doing better on that, up 17.7%. And then other revenues increased from 5.3 to 7.2 million, 37%. And that's due to some allocation of ARPA funding for revenue loss categories earlier this year. Under the expenses, some of the bigger items, personnel is up 12.3%. That's primarily some of the money for the sheriff's wages were funded with CARES money back in '21. That didn't happen this year, so that's just an abnormality. That's not, it's explainable, it's not outside the budget. Supplies is up. Gas primarily is the reason there. As you all know, we're paying more at the pump, and that's up 0.09 million. Capital is up 1.5 to 2.2 million, 50% due to 0.7 million increase in public safety vehicles. And then transfers out are up similarly to the health department. There was some CARES funding back in '21 that wasn't there in '22. Overall, we expect to end the year with at least 40% of fund balance, which is in line with our policy. Page 4 is just a different representation of the expenditure budgets. You can see by department, again, there is variances here and there, but we expect all budgets will fall within their allotment this year and not need any amendments. Moving on to page 5, this is unchanged from last report, 84.6 million in fund balance at the end of 2021. We only update this once a year when those numbers are known. So no change there. Page 6, $93.2 million in cash, 114 days, still very solid representation of cash as of 9/30. And then one of my favorite graphs on page 7 shows the cash flow throughout the year in line with previous years. Moving on to the lodging excise tax fund on page 8, we included this year just through, they had a rough time during COVID. You can see though they've bounced back remarkably from 5.5 million last year to 8.5 million this year, a 53% increase. We anticipate almost 13 million in lodging excise tax by the end of the year, and that's what that previous agenda item that got moved to consent was for, so we can pay out some more to Experience Grand Rapids. They bounced back way more than we anticipated, and we're hopeful we can begin paying back the 10 million owed to the general fund next year. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Yes, Commissioner Bukowski?
Real quick, I mean, this is third quarter, we're almost end of the fourth quarter. What does your crystal ball say for a fund or a net at the end of this year that probably gets transferred to strategic capital?
I haven't even looked at that, so I'd hate to guess right now.
All right,
Sorry.
but at least it'll be in the positive.
It'll be in the positive for sure.
All right, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, any Commissioner miscellaneous this morning? Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. I realize we have gone over our normal budgeted time, but given that this is your final Finance Committee meeting, I wanted to thank you for your 4 years as chair. As I've sat on this committee, you have dealt with a various number of personalities, me being one of them, and I have always appreciated that in our moments where we have disagreements, you are always making sure that we have the information we need to best represent our constituents, that you, throughout the budget process, ensure we are equipped with the knowledge and background that we need to make informed decisions. You know, the fact that you have presided over this committee and worked to empower commissioners is something I've been very thankful for. And since you referenced Brene Brown in the previous meeting, it piqued my own, I myself have not been a thorough reader, but have read from time to time. I just couldn't help but remember the quote that was the basis for her most famous book from Theodore Roosevelt, who at the best knows in the end of the triumph of high achievements, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly. And I think anyone who has served in public service has successes and failures. I know I have. And even though your time in this service is coming to an end, I think we can all say that you dared greatly. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Chair. I want to echo what Commissioner Wooden said and recognize you for your service as chair. I think the finance chair, I've learned it might be one of the unsung heroes of this organization, because there's so much that comes before this committee and so much that you have to be educated on and lead on. And I've very much appreciated serving with you and learning from you and your leadership on this group and on the board as a whole. And I just want to say thank you for that. And, you know, it occurs to me, between you and Commissioner Bukowski and Commissioner Morgan, there's a heck of a lot of institutional knowledge leaving the table after this meeting. So the same goes for both of you commissioners. I think we all, those of us who are newer to this board, learn a little more from your tirades, would be a mean way to say it. But I think you're just going on and on, but I think a lot of us have flagged some important things, listening and learning from you over your time. So just know that you too will be missed. And to add to the Teddy Roosevelt, I think we've got several men and women in the arena here. And so thank you all for being those people.
Thank you. Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I told you already in private, but I'd like to say it in public, that I will miss you. You have been a very, very good chair. You've listened. You've been approachable. You haven't played games with the money, and I personally really appreciate your leadership, and I thank you for your leadership, and I will miss you. I don't know who the heck we're going to get to replace you. I don't think we can replace you, but I thank you very much. And Commissioner Bukowski, I'm going to miss you very much too. I like your short hair. by the way. And Commissioner Morgan, thank you for always being a kind person to me. Even though you're on the other side, you've always been very kind to me. So I want you to know that I appreciate you. And I will definitely, like Commissioner Green said, look for, where we're going to get the rest of the institutional knowledge that is leaving the table. We can only hope that we will go forward. I'm thankful right now we have Al in the position and definitely Linda staying on. So thank you very much for your service, all of you.
Thank you. Commissioner Morgan.
One of the good and bad things about elected, the elected process is you don't get to pick the folks that you work with, right? I mean, it's up to the electorate. And I have to tell you, I've enjoyed working with most of the commissioners, probably about 90%, I would say. And I really appreciate your leadership, Madam Chair, and 5 years of getting us through the budget process and keeping this county on the rails is a pretty good feat. So good luck in your future endeavors. There is a future after retirement, Commissioner Bolkowski, and I will miss most of all is the bantering back and forth that Commissioner Bolkowski and I have been doing, and it was just all out of respect, I think, from my perspective. So good luck to you.
Yes, Commissioner Bolkowski.
Yeah.
Last but not least.
Well, the chair will go last, so I'll take the least. But I was looking for a quote, but I won't find it, because instead of Brene Brown, I would love to quote Bilbo Baggins, who said, I don't like half of you as much as I should, or something like that. I'll look that quote up and I'll have it ready next week.
I was trying to
No, and in all seriousness, I just want to echo the sheriff's comment about community service, because, I know Commissioner Morgan, I know you, Chair, Mandy, who's leaving as well, at least this table will speak about, and Commissioner Womack. It's about community service, and how do we keep working to instill that in the next generation, because not to sound like the old Pollock, but what's happening with that younger generation when it comes to service, the influencers aren't influencing service enough. So that's my crotchety comment, but again, I have nothing but fond memories, and I thank you for the opportunity to serve alongside you.
Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Again, also like to recognize Commissioner Bolter, Commissioner Womack, Commissioner Bolkowski, Commissioner Morgan. It's a significant change coming in January, and I am cautiously optimistic we are going to continue to do phenomenal work as it will be new ideas and new talents arriving, and for the best interest of the county, may all of those folks work really hard to continue to be fiscally responsible for us, because we are still residents of this county and are counting on you who are left and the new coming on to do just a great job and continue that AAA bond rating. It's very important we throw that in at least once on the way out the door. So, it's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. I've been here for 8 years. I've sat on finance the entire 8 years. It really was the best fit for me. Not that legislative isn't important. It is. It's just for my skill set, this was the best fit, and it's been great sitting on this committee for that long, watching the budgets change and grow, and have some great things happen. I've been able to use my skill set and the process to really improve the budget process since I've been here. There were, just to put this in perspective for a little history lesson on my way out the door, there was a time where the budget work sessions were maybe 30, 45 minutes before finance. And we did those a couple times and then went through the budget. As things changed. We changed how that was done, added the work sessions more after the finance committee, so there wasn't, we had times with those other ways that it was done, it was just, not all the questions were being answered, and that's just not okay. So I do hope that everyone strives for that continued improvement, that even things that I have done change and alter to be better yet. I'm all about constant improvement and positive changes going forward. So with that, it is my honor to adjourn my last Finance and Physical Resources Committee meeting. The meeting on Tuesday, December 20th has been canceled. The next meeting will be Tuesday, January 10th at 8:30 a.m. without me.